Hello and welcome to this After Effects certification preparation series of videos. I'm Luisa Winters. In this video, I want to cover Objective 4.4a, which is to transform visual elements in the composition. We're going to talk about scaling, rotating, flipping, moving, fitting to, etc., etc. So let's get to it. In After Effects, please go ahead and open the composition called Transform Visual Elements into the Composition. To open it, just double click and there you have it, right? So I have two layers in here, the logo and the vines, and we're just going to talk about transforming in here. So if you don't have the exercise files, that's okay. That's okay. Just create a composition, put any clips in there, and we're good. So the first thing that I want to talk about is transform. So transform is always anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. There are shortcuts for this. A for anchor point, P for position, S for scale, R for rotation, and T for opacity, which used to be transparency, right? If you want to see, say, opacity and position, then it's Shift P, so T, Shift T, Shift R, etc., etc. So if you add the Shift key and then you press the other shortcut, then you can see those. Of course, you can always expand and see all of them at the same time. But quite frankly, I mean, very soon you're going to run out of real estate. All right. So the shortcuts are so easy, right? So let's talk about anchor point. The anchor point is by default in the middle of the layer. It doesn't have to be. You can click and drag it with the anchor point tool, and you can change it to different parts. Say if I put it here on the bottom left corner, then the rotation will be from that axis. The scale will be from there as well, right? And by default, and by the way, this little light of mine, almost always, let it shine. Remember that? Continuously rasterize? Yeah, these are vector layers. So anyway, see the scale now, how it's remaining like nice and large. All right, so I just want to bring in a point before we go on, and that is, what is position? So what is the position of the layer? And most people answer by saying, hey, the position of the layer is where the layer is. And I'm going to say, well, you know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong, because that's exactly what position is. But then why? If I scrub the values for anchor point, the layer moves. Position didn't change. Anchor point did. So exactly, more precisely, what is position? So everything in transform except for opacity, so opacity not included, everything on the transform has to do with the anchor point. So when we talk about anchor point, we're talking about where the anchor point is with respect of the layer. If we're talking about position, we're saying really where the anchor point is with respect to the composition. So if the position is at 0, 0, the anchor point is top left. But if I have the anchor point be at 0, 0, the anchor point is top left of the layer, not the composition. So this is where the anchor point is with respect to the layer, and position is where the anchor point is with respect to the composition. Then scale is how big it is, starting from the anchor point, obviously. Rotation, same thing. And of course, opacity is completely unaffected by the anchor point, is really the only one. Anything, we can reset all of these simply by clicking reset, and there you go. I'm just going to move it here. You can also go under layer, transform, and you can transform the anchor point, the position, the scale, the rotation, the opacity. But you can also flip. You can flip horizontal. There you go. So layer, transform. You can flip vertical. There you go. Layer, transform. You can center in view. Layer, transform. You can center the anchor point in the layer content. That's the default, right? That would be like resetting it. Transform. You can fit to comp. Look at that. Fit to comp. That is so cool. Of course, little light of mine. If it's not on, see how it looks soft? Yeah, turn it on. Layer, transform. You can fit to the width, to the height, and you can, of course, auto-orient. So auto-orient is kind of cool. Let's create a new composition. Do this with me. So let's create a new composition, call it auto-orient, right? And let's create an arrow, right? So I'm gonna, with the start tool, I'm going to have only an arrowhead, and didn't mean to do that. I'm going to put the anchor point right here. And now I'm going to create a rectangle like yay, so that I have an arrow. Right? And there you go. Now I have an arrow. And I'm going to rename the shape layer arrow. And there you go. I don't want a stroke. In any way, I don't want a stroke. So now I'm going to maybe make this a little bit smaller. And now I'm going to keyframe the position of this arrow. All right, so I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to go from here to here to here. And I'm just going to create a little zigzag thing like yay, right? I'll separate these a little bit more like yay. And you know what? I want these to be Bezier, so just a little curvature. Yeah, something like that, right? So I always want for this arrow to point to where it's going. And I could keyframe rotation, but I don't wanna. So I'm gonna go to Layer, Transform, Auto Orient, and now I'm gonna say, hey, orient along the path. And this is what's happening. And you see that's just rotating by itself. But that's not really what I want. I now can adjust the rotation by itself like that. And now this will work the way that I want. I want this to be curvier so that we can really see it. Look at that. See it? Is by default always pointing to where it needs to go. And that's really cool because I didn't keyframe that rotation. I just told the layer to auto orient. And then of course I needed to adjust the rotation so that, because I mean, the layer doesn't know what the point of the arrow is, right? So I had to just adjust that rotation so that it's pointing to where I need it. And there you have it, done. So, you know, these transform things start becoming really, really, really important. So I'm just saying. All right, so auto orient. And don't forget the rest, you know, fit to comp height to width, you know, center in view, flip vertical, horizontal, opacity, rotation, all of those things. And of course, you can reset everything. And don't forget the transform things that you have right here in the timeline, which are always, always, always anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. And this brings us to the end of this movie. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next movie.